some of the really old bottles. There's some really some bottles we haven't looked at in forever back there. They just never come up, which is kind of wild. So obviously I'm not a rum expert, but we're just gonna judge this rum in the same way that we would judge a whiskey, in the same manner. And maybe that's wrong, but that's the best method I got. I mean, if there's a better way, if there's a better way to judge them, then holy shit, maybe rum's goated. I don't know. All right, let's get this out. Let's get that out, and then get this out. Clear this out. I'm kind of an idiot, and I just didn't save like an empty review sheet. Instead, I like keep opening an old one and clearing it out. That's like probably not the best way to do this, but you gotta like. Actually, now that I've cleared this out, I'm thinking about it. Let's do a resave, a blank sheet save. And now we have that sorted for next time. I'm smart. Okay. Here we go. So by verdict of the random wheel here, today we're doing the live review of the old Plantation Barbados 2013 rum. This is a double-aged, apparently vintage collection, beautiful boxed Barbados rum from Plantation or Plantaray or Maison Ferrand, whether you agree or disagree with whatever they do. Alright, so, but yes, this is a Barbados rum owned by Maison Ferrand, obviously. 50.2% alcohol by volume, or 104 proof, probably chill filtered and probably color added. I mean, I kind of assume so. Doesn't say it's not, so probably is. It is dosed 2 grams per liter, so a small amount of dosage is present. And it's got a whole bunch of notes on here, so again, the back of the bottle like kind of gives us a whole bunch of information. So it's distilled at the West Indies Rum Distillery from molasses, obviously, 2 to 3 day fermentation. Colum and Gregg pot still. Distilled in 2013, aged until 2022. Aged 8 years in 200-liter bourbon casks in Brighton Beach, Barbados, and then 1 year in 400-liter Brand cognac casks in France. And it says 60 esters and 113 volatile compounds. I'm not an expert enough to know exactly what that means, but I know it's the congeners that come off the still. What's the opposite of pot still? Well, it wouldn't necessarily be the opposite, but typically you have pot still and you have column still. Those are like the major two ones you would have. So the pot still is that iconic one you usually think of that's got the bulbous lower shape, and a column still is just a straight continuous column that has different gauges on it. Even for this idea, we could just get a good picture representation. But typically the column stills don't preserve as much of the like robustness of the flavor, and even the shape of the pot still can determine how much robust, oily kind of flavor you get out of it. Um, so obviously, actually, I'm just going to save these images and pop them up. Um, these are maybe not the best immediate representation, but actually, you do give me a good point that I should actually have some images like this for reference material when people ask. But for this particular one, so this oh, that's the wrong. So this is the pot still. Oh, where did it go? It's fucking miniature. This is the pot still that you know, right? So you got that bulbous shape on the bottom, and it goes, and the spirit goes up to the top. So like this bulbous shape, depending on how squat and round it is, the more kind of like oils and robust flavors get out. Whereas if it's long and tall, like for example, one that you commonly reference is like Glenmorangie, has the tallest stills, and it has like a giraffe as its like icon sometimes because it's like a really tall still. There's so much contact on the way up the neck that a lot of those robust flavors kind of fall off and you're left with something that's more light and effervescent, right? So that's like the pot still. Whereas the calm still is like this. And you have like those gauges where it's continuous. It's as far as I understand, these things are a continuous distiller, and then you have like your cuts at certain intervals, right? So like if it gets up to a certain point, then it gets cut off, sort of deal. Um, that's my basic understanding, but I'm not an expert when it comes to stills at this point. But yeah, that's the two different types of stills, and yeah, typically the pot still ones are like, this is like a more robust thing. So a lot of times when you think about column still, you can column still anything obviously, but you don't typically call them still Scotch. But usually like it's like grain spirits and stuff like that. Stuff where you're not so super concerned with the robustness of the flavor, but they are more efficient, right? It's like a more efficient way to produce whiskey than this, because this you got to like load it and fire it, and then you got to do a run, right? It's not continuous. That's my understanding anyway. Yeah, so this is a mix. This is a mix of column still and what they call Greg pot still. So there's like a really really old pot still that they have called old Greg. Um, References aside, that I think is like, this says this. My notes say it's from an 1850s plantation, and the plantation was called the Greg Farm. So it's the old Greg pot still. I'm old Greg, yeah, yeah. It's a very old Greg pot still. So that's like the pot still portion, and I don't know like the the percentages here, but this particular one-time limited edition release is of 20 casks. So I don't know how many of the 20 casks are pot still and how many of them are column still. I have no idea. Doesn't actually say here. But we had this the first time, and I was terribly not impressed. And then we had this the second time, and I was very impressed. So I'm not sure what we'll get this time, but I think clearly some amount of oxygen in the bottle made a big difference for this compared to the neck pour. The neck pour seemed frankly terrible. Now maybe it was the day in my palate, but we'll see where it goes from here. So we can give this a minute to chill itself out. I'm already getting a little bit of a fruit note, and a little bit of like an oak note emanating from the glass, just have it being poured. I'm not a wizard. I can't just detect things magically from the glass, but it is quite loud coming out of the glass already, so that's always a good sign. I think people might think I'm a wizard. Oh yeah, we're this far away and I can already tell there's orchard fruits. So yeah, we'll give that a minute. And while we're doing that, just out of curiosity, um, let's just expand our knowledge on this pot still versus column still idea, because I'm not super duper clear, crystal clear. So the pot still is known for having a higher degree of control and a greater diversity of spirit that can be produced. So yeah, so like the different shapes of the still, how long that neck is, how squat and robust it is, are all going to determine the shape, will determine the spirit. Whereas the column still offers speed, efficiency, and consistency with a more straightforward addition of automation. So yeah, I guess you could automate that column still to just automatically cut things out as it's continuous, right? And actually, these guys are talking about like the business of it, and that's not super duper interesting to me. Generally speaking, pot stills create a richer and more flavorful spirit, while column stills are preferred for more neutral spirits. Yeah, that would make sense. It's kind of like already what I know. I was kind of hoping this would give me some further insight. Pot still is filled, heated, emptied, and filled again. Yeah, so you have to batch the pot still, whereas the column still can kind of just run continuously and continuously 24/7 create spirit, right? You don't have to like put the wash in the still and then fire it and then clean it out when it's done, sort of thing. Column stills produce liquids that are milder in flavor, have a smoother mouthfeel than pot still. They mostly produce vodka, gin, and some styles of rum, as well as most bourbon whiskey. So that's interesting. I wonder how much bourbon distilleries actually use column versus pot still. That's actually a thing I didn't really think too much about. Because a lot of the bourbon distilleries I've watched their tours, they do use pot stills. So interesting that they say most bourbon whiskeys in this particular article. I don't know how accurate that is. Or maybe it's the type of thing where when they say most bourbon whiskeys, are referring to like those bourbon whiskeys you don't really think about because they're so bottom shelf that they're just not. I wonder if MGP is using column stills. That's a good question. I don't have an easy way to find out. It's not like really coming up. Show results with MGP. Yeah, I think MGP is like, which is the largest sourcer. I think they're mostly column stills. Saying here something about MGP having multi-floor column stills, like fucking probably giant ass ones. The biggest distillery you've never heard of is in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Oh, I've heard of it. Don't you worry. Most people probably haven't if they're not super duper into the sauce, but I've heard of it. Don't you worry. All right, so I'm giving this some time here. So immediately there's some of those fruity notes. There's some sweetness in there. It's definitely like it's one of those weird things too, where like you're thinking rum and you're thinking tropical, but I do get like a pineapple papaya sort of note up at the top. Kind of like a toffee sweetness in there. A little bit of oak, a touch of that oak. A slight salty flavor. It's kind of like almost like a herbal spice character in there too. Lots of cool things actually going on here. So probably colored some amount. And of course, we do know it is 2 grams dosed. I'll try it on the palate there. Cheers. Initially, on the arrival on the palate, there's like a couple bright and fruity notes. We're gonna say, obviously, we're getting that warmth from our first sip here, but it's kind of like a tropical fruit salad type of thing. With spice, oak is in there. A little bit of that simple syrup type sweetness. Finish is not terribly long, but it's reasonable. I didn't like get a good feel of the finish just there, but I could tell that it wasn't super duper long and stay with me forever. And it definitely went away as I was talking. And sometimes you get those finishes where it's like there's a strong part of the finish, and then there's like a lingering whisper of like, oh yeah, you could taste this a little bit still all the way back here. And that one is just completely gone right out of the mouth. Almost like I didn't drink anything at all. So obviously not a long finish. Definitely noticeably shorter than say maybe the average Scotch that I've had. So now I won't like stick too much on the length, but if it's delivering, it's okay. But obviously the length can sometimes be an indication of weakness. Oh yeah, slight butterscotch, slight molasses sweetness. Actually, that butterscotch molasses sweetness really up closer to the fruit now. Pretty strong, actually. But still that, like, bright, like, papaya on the nose. That toffee is, like, entirely morphed upwards into this butterscotch molasses character. Some vanilla. There's another kind of like vanilla adjacent note. Maybe we're just thinking the vanilla is really artificial, but I feel like there's like another. Yeah, maybe it's just a real artificial vanilla, not like you know, actual extract, but like an artificial vanilla sweetness. I feel like there's a note there that is like I know this note and I can't think of it right now. I almost want to say like vanilla icing kind of thing. But it's all bright notes. It's all treble notes. I'm missing like any kind of like accompanying bass notes, like maybe like a darker toffee or a chocolate or something like that. That's not here at all. It's all treble. Not unpleasant that it's all treble, but it feels like, I mean, I don't know if this is a thing other people can like understand or grasp, but it feels like all the notes are like at the top and there's like almost no notes at the bottom, if that makes any sense. Like when I'm smelling things, I try to like almost like mentally like I layer them, and it's like based on like how bright and shiny or low and bassy they are, and like there's like no bass at all. It's like the song just has no drums, which is sometimes okay. You can have, you know, just guitar, for example, but all right, I'm gonna go on the palette again here. Trying to focus on this finish a little bit. Some of that fruitiness is still in there. Some of that spice is still in there on the finish, to be clear. A little bit of barrel oakiness. There's like a cocoa that's lingering, but it does go away, you know, um, in you know, reasonable order. It's not too lingering. That being said, I do like the complexity of the amount of different things going on in the finish. It's not just a couple of things. There is quite a few um, different voices fighting to be heard in the finish, so that's good. Nothing new presenting at this point on the nose, as far as I can tell. We're kind of like at parity, I think, at this point. It's mostly the sweet notes in charge, now a little bit of fruit. Yeah, there's not too much, we'll say, time-based development at this point. It's still, again, you got some fruitiness, that little, like, bouquet of tropical fruits, some spice and oakiness, a little bit of a sweet note, and the finish is similar. Again, some fruit, some molasses, some oak, some spice. Kind of all well balanced, actually, playing together pretty nicely. Um, Nothing's overpowering. It's all kind of taking its turn, so that's good. Could use a little heft on the finish, I think, but can't complain too much. All right, so let's focus on the aroma, including everything that we've kind of experienced so far. I'm kind of hunting a little bit for like a little bit of that cognac influence. That supposedly it's got a year in cognac, but it's really not super present, at least right now. It's maybe that like um, bright fruit salad has kind of got some of that grape character, some of that wine character is like kind of made itself known through those fruits, but I'm not getting like a wine note or a grape note or anything like that. Overall, nose is pretty good though. There's a couple good top notes, some development. It's missing the base. Um, we'll go with 18. All right. Now we'll focus on the palate. It's some good balance, good intensity of the fruits, the oak, the spice character. All playing kind of playing pretty well. Um, Probably gonna have to get another one before I can choose here. No, a boba you. Being said, there's not like a lot of crazy development going on, peeking in and out. It's kind of like most of what you get on the nose is present on the palate, minus some of those like um, vanilla characters, and the sweetness is like turned down, but that turned down sweetness is like almost like keeps it in line with like the fruit and the oak and the spice. So I'm kind of okay with that note being less loud, but obviously be better if they were all turned up, I suppose. Um, it's still pretty strong, I feel. But we'll go ahead again here so I can try to make a better judgment. It's just not very much. There's not any development, or there's nothing new peeking in. It's not like you're tasting something different every sip. So, but it's still pretty good. Let's go with, you know what, 18 is good again. 18. I'll focus on the finish, which I know is maybe the weakest part. That being said, the quality of the finish is actually pretty good. It's just the length that's kind of it's kind of just disappears so fast. I wouldn't say so fast, but it is really not lingering at all. It doesn't leave you with anything. When it's gone, it's gone. Like probably if I was to give like a typical like length comment, it would be like short plus length of finish, which is quite short. That being said, the actual flavor is pretty good. So that's the competing arguments there. But not like outstanding, more of a just a continuation of the palette. Some tasty fruit character, some spiciness, some barrels in there. But it is gone in a short order. There's no way I could say it's a medium finish. It leaves me pretty wanting. Um, that being said, the volume of the finish though, and the complexity of flavors available while they're the same and there's no real transition, are satisfying for sure. Um, there's no way I could say this is a great finish. It's a good finish. Um, call it 13. All right, so now we're gonna look at the texture. Which, based on just from what I've kind of drank so far, it is not thick, uh, really, and I don't really think it's velvet, like a thick and velvety. I wouldn't use those words, but it's definitely not thin. Um, it does have good robustness about it, but I wouldn't call it like thick and oily or any of that. I mean, now that I focus on it, it's a little better when I think about it directly. Um, I'll give it a 6. 6 out of 10. Now we're going to think about the experience that we're having with this. So I like the tropical fruit character. I like that it's right up front. I like the complexity of the nose. I like that it's a higher proof. That's nice. But most of what it's doing, that spiciness, that oakiness, that sweetness, this is all very familiar. The most standout part for me, I guess, is the fact that um, that fruity character is so well presented and balanced against the oakiness, and the fruity character carries all the way through. Always present, never getting overpowered by the oakiness or the spiciness in any way. And a lot of times I feel like, especially in whiskey, you get a fruity character on the nose and a little bit of that fruity character on the palate. But it's like once you're into the mid palate finish, it's like gone and replaced with spice notes and oak notes and all kinds of other things kind of take its place. But there's a good fruity presence in this throughout the whole experience. Being said, I don't think it's standing out in any way, except for that. I mean, we'll call it 8 out of 15. This would be, let's do our quick math here. We have like 18 and 8, 18, 13, and 6 and 8 is 63. 63 out of 100. Not bad. Not bad at all.